Stoic tips for real life. Train your mind. Imagine waking up tomorrow to the worst news of your life. Your job, gone. Your savings, wiped out. Someone you love, diagnosed with a terminal illness. The life you've carefully built over years crumbling beneath your feet in an instant. What would you do? How would you react? Would you collapse under the weight of these circumstances? Would panic overtake you, clouding your judgment when you need clarity most? Would despair drag you into a spiral of hopelessness? Or would you stand firm, your mind an unshakable fortress in the storm, capable of clear thought and deliberate action even as chaos swirls around you? Throughout human history, people have faced catastrophic circumstances: disease, war, loss, betrayal, natural disasters. Yet some individuals have demonstrated an extraordinary ability to maintain inner calm and clarity regardless of external conditions. This isn't random chance or simply being born strong. It's the result of deliberate mental training. The ancient Stoics lived through plagues that wiped out a third of the population, wars that destroyed entire cities, exile from their homes, torture, imprisonment, and death. Yet they discovered a system that allowed them to not just survive but thrive amid chaos. A mental training system so powerful that it transformed slaves into teachers, soldiers into philosophers, and emperors into humble servants of humanity. Here's what the Stoics understood that most people today have forgotten. Your mind is either your greatest ally or your worst enemy. There is no neutral option. Every moment of every day, your mind is either working for you or against you. And unlike almost everything else in your life, your job security, the economy, other people's opinions, even your physical health, you have complete control over which one it becomes. In this video, we will learn how the Stoics trained their minds to become impenetrable fortresses of calm, clarity, and purpose, regardless of external circumstances. These aren't vague platitudes or spiritual bypassing. These are concrete mental exercises with clear instructions that you can begin implementing today. You'll learn the premeditation of evils technique that kills anxiety before it starts by facing your fears directly and systematically, how to transform negative emotions like anger and disappointment into fuel for growth and wisdom, the daily mental exercises practiced by Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, who faced constant war and political intrigue, the difference between healthy and unhealthy desires that determines whether you'll ever feel satisfied, how to use voluntary discomfort to build resilience in every area of your life, and the one Stoic principle that can instantly eliminate 90% of your daily suffering by clarifying what truly deserves your attention. What if I told you that most of your suffering, your stress, your anxiety, your disappointment, your sense of being overwhelmed, comes not from what happens to you, but from how your untrained mind responds to it? What if most of the negative emotions you experience aren't inevitable reactions to events, but rather the product of unconscious judgments your mind makes automatically? What if the solution to your stress, anxiety, and disappointment has been hiding in plain sight for over 2 millennia, practiced by some of history's most impressive individuals? There's a reason Stoicism is experiencing a massive resurgence in our modern world. In an age of unprecedented comfort and convenience, we've paradoxically become mentally weaker, less resilient, and more emotionally fragile than previous generations. We've optimized our external environment while neglecting the internal environment of our minds. The ancient Stoics would recognize our predicament immediately. We've forgotten how to train the one tool we use every moment of our lives, our mind. This isn't about positive thinking or ignoring reality. In fact, the Stoics were brutally realistic about life's challenges. It's not about suppressing emotions. The Stoics felt deeply. It's about training your mind to see reality clearly, without distortion, and respond with wisdom instead of reaction. 5 years ago, before I discovered Stoic mind training, I was living in a constant state of anxiety, externally successful, but internally chaotic. Each day was a roller coaster of emotional reactions to circumstances beyond my control. One negative comment could ruin my day. One rejection could shake my confidence for weeks. One unexpected problem could trigger hours of worry. Then I discovered the Stoic mind training system, and within months, not years, I began experiencing a profound shift in how my mind operated. The same challenges still appeared, but my response to them was completely different. Where there was once emotional chaos, there was now responsive clarity. The techniques I'm about to share with you transformed the lives of people 2,000 years ago. They've transformed my life in the modern world, and they can transform yours starting today. The core principle, dichotomy of control, the foundation of all Stoic mind training begins with a simple but revolutionary idea. Some things are within our control and some things are not, and most people waste their entire lives confusing the two. This principle, called the dichotomy of control, is the cornerstone upon which all other Stoic practices are built. Master this, and you've taken the most important step toward mental freedom. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and ended it as one of history's greatest philosophers, put it this way in his handbook, The Enchiridion: "Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." He continues, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." Let's break this down into modern language and see why it's so revolutionary. The Stoics recognize that at any given moment, the only things truly under your control are your judgments and beliefs, how you interpret events, your voluntary actions, what you choose to do, your values and priorities, what you decide is important. Everything else, absolutely everything, falls outside your complete control. This includes other people's opinions and actions, your reputation and how others perceive you, external events like weather, economy, politics, past events that have already occurred, future outcomes of your efforts, your body's health and appearance. You can influence these but not control them completely. The timing and manner of your own death. Let me break this down with a modern example. Last year, I was on my way to a critical business meeting that could have changed my career. I had prepared for weeks, rehearsed my presentation dozens of times, and invested significantly in travel and materials. As I arrived at the airport, the announcement came: all flights canceled due to severe weather. Not delayed, canceled. Around me, people were screaming at airline staff, pounding counters, having complete meltdowns. One man was shouting, "Don't you understand? I have to be in Chicago by tonight," as if his necessity would somehow clear the thunderstorms. But I remembered the Stoic training. The flight cancellation? Not in my control. The weather? Not in my control. The airline's policies? Not in my control. How I responded to this situation? Entirely in my control. Instead of wasting energy on anger or despair, I immediately focused on solutions. While others were still yelling, I had already accepted that the original plan was no longer viable, called my clients to explain the situation, and propose alternatives. Rebooked on another airline with a different route for the following morning. Found a quiet corner of the airport to refine my presentation. Turned what could have been hours of frustration into productive preparation time. The result? I arrived late but more prepared than I would have been otherwise, and the clients were impressed by my calm handling of the situation. The deal closed successfully, and one client specifically mentioned my adaptability as a factor in their decision. This isn't just about positive thinking or finding silver linings. It's about training your mind to instantly categorize every situation into what you can and cannot control, then directing 100% of your mental and emotional energy only toward what you can control. The Stoics practiced this mental sorting constantly until it became automatic. Every adversity became a simple two-part question. What aspects of this can I control? What aspects can I not control? Once you've made this distinction, the path forward becomes clear. Focus exclusively on what you can control and accept what you cannot. This principle seems simple, but its implications are profound. Consider how much mental and emotional energy you've spent on things completely outside your control, ruminating about past mistakes that cannot be undone, worrying about future outcomes you cannot guarantee, trying to force others to think or act differently, getting angry about circumstances you cannot change, feeling anxious about possibilities that may never materialize. The Stoics would say all of this energy is wasted, not because these concerns aren't valid, but because directing energy toward what you cannot control produces suffering without solution. Here's how you can practice this today. Start a dichotomy journal. At the end of each day, list 3 situations that caused you stress or emotional disturbance. For each situation, create 2 columns. Column 1, what aspects were in my control? Column 2, what aspects were not in my control? Be brutally honest in your assessment. Most people tend to overestimate what's in their control. Rate yourself on how well you focused your energy only on what you could control, 1-10 scale. For tomorrow, set an intention to catch yourself when you begin worrying about things beyond your control. Here's an example. Entry from my own journal. Situation: client sent critical email about project deliverables, in my control. My response tone, timing of response, solutions I offer, how I interpret their criticism, whether I take it personally, not in my control. Client's mood, their expectations, their communication style, whether they value my work. Rating, 6/10. I spent 30 minutes feeling defensive before shifting to problem-solving mode. Modern psychology has validated this Stoic principle through concepts like locus of control, and psychological flexibility. Research shows that people who focus on what they can control rather than what they cannot experience, lower rates of anxiety and depression, higher resilience in the face of adversity, greater persistence toward goals, higher overall life satisfaction. After just 30 days of this practice, you'll notice your mind automatically making this distinction, saving you countless hours of wasted emotional energy. Premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils, perhaps the most powerful and counterintuitive Stoic technique for training your mind is what they called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Unlike modern positive thinking approaches that tell you to avoid negative thoughts, the Stoics did exactly the opposite. They deliberately visualized worst-case scenarios in vivid detail, not to indulge in pessimism but to develop immunity to fear and preparation for reality. Seneca, who was both a wealthy statesman and one of Rome's greatest Stoic philosophers, advised, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" He continues, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." What Seneca and other Stoics understood is that most of our fear comes not from threats themselves, but from our avoidance of thinking about them. When we refuse to confront possible negative outcomes, they grow more terrifying in our imagination. The premeditation of evils technique works through several psychological mechanisms. Exposure therapy. By repeatedly facing your fears mentally, they lose their emotional charge preparation. By thinking through worst-case scenarios, you develop contingency plans perspective. By imagining truly bad outcomes, current problems shrink in comparison gratitude. By contemplating loss, you appreciate what you currently have. Let me show you how this works in practice. Say you're worried about losing your job. Instead of trying to push away the anxiety with positive affirmations like, "I'm sure everything will be fine," a Stoic would intentionally visualize the worst-case scenario in vivid detail. What exactly would happen if you received a termination? Notice tomorrow? Where would you live if you couldn't make rent or mortgage payments? How would you explain the situation to your family? What would your daily routine look like during a period of unemployment? How would you pay for necessities? What skills do you have that could earn income elsewhere? Who in your support network could help you? And for how long? What luxuries would you need to sacrifice immediately? This isn't a brief, abstract consideration. A proper premeditation involves dwelling on these scenarios for 10-15 minutes, really feeling the emotions that arise, and thinking through specific, concrete plans. By facing these fears directly, two remarkable things happen. You realize many of your worst fears are survivable. Uncomfortable, yes, but not fatal. You develop practical contingency plans that actually reduce the risk of the worst outcomes. When I started this YouTube channel, I was paralyzed by the fear of public criticism, so I practiced the Stoic technique rigorously. I vividly imagined receiving hundreds of negative comments attacking my ideas, being mocked by friends and colleagues who saw the videos, making a factual error that damaged my credibility, saying something that would be taken out of context and used against me, becoming a brief internet meme for saying something awkward or foolish, having content stolen or misrepresented. I didn't just briefly consider these possibilities. I spent time fully imagining each scenario, feeling the embarrassment, shame, and disappointment that would come with them. Then I asked myself, would I survive this? Yes. Would it matter in 5 years? No. Is helping others worth facing this fear? Absolutely. This mental rehearsal didn't eliminate all anxiety, but it reduced it to a manageable level where I could take action despite the fear. And when some of these scenarios actually did happen, because if you create content long enough, criticism is inevitable, I was prepared. The sting was significantly reduced because I had already faced it in my mind. The research now confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. Psychologists call this defensive pessimism, and studies show it's far more effective for anxiety reduction than forced positive thinking for many people. Dr. Julie Norum, who has researched this approach extensively, found that for anxiety-prone individuals, defensive pessimism produces better outcomes than attempts at optimism. By thinking through negative scenarios, you gain a sense of control and preparation that everything will be fine. Thinking simply cannot provide. Try this 3-minute practice before your next stressful event. Find a quiet space where you won't be disturbed too. Choose a specific situation you're anxious about. 3. Vividly imagine the worst plausible outcome, not absurd catastrophes, but realistic challenges. Allow yourself to fully feel the emotions that arise. Don't suppress them. Ask yourself, could I handle this? How would I respond specifically? 6. Develop a concrete plan for how you would respond to this scenario 7. Remind yourself that by considering this possibility, you've reduced its power over you. This Stoic practice pairs particularly well with the dichotomy of control. After imagining worst-case scenarios, classify aspects into what you can and cannot control, then focus your preparation only on what you can influence. The view from above. Another powerful Stoic mind training technique is what Marcus Aurelius practiced regularly, the view from above. This mental exercise helps you gain proper perspective on your problems by mentally zooming out to see the bigger picture. In his personal journal, Meditations, which was never intended for publication, Marcus would remind himself to step back and view his problems from increasingly larger perspectives, seeing himself from above his city, then his country, then the world, then the cosmos. He wrote, "Think of the universal substance of which you have a very small portion, and of universal time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are." This practice works by countering what psychologists now call spotlight effect, our tendency to overestimate how much others notice our actions and appearances, and our natural self-centeredness that magnifies our own problems while diminishing others. The view from above is not about making yourself feel insignificant. Rather, it's about gaining accurate perspective on your place in the larger whole. It helps you reduce catastrophizing by seeing problems in proper proportion, increase compassion by recognizing others' struggles, identify what truly matters when viewed from a larger perspective, break out of rumination cycles by expanding. Mental Focus 5. Connect to something larger than yourself. I want you to try this with me right now. Close your eyes. After watching this part, of course, and imagine floating upward, seeing yourself from 10 feet above. Notice your current problems at this height. See yourself sitting or standing where you are, perhaps looking at your phone or computer. Now rise to 100 feet. See your home, your neighborhood. Notice all the other lives happening simultaneously around you, each person with their own concerns and challenges. Now 1,000 feet. See your city, the countless lives and struggles happening simultaneously. Traffic flowing, people working, loving, worrying, all at once. Now rise to see the entire planet. 7 billion human lives, each with their own challenges, many facing difficulties far greater than your current concerns. Wars, poverty, illness, and also joy, connection, and triumph happening simultaneously. Now imagine seeing the galaxy, billions of stars, and the incomprehensible vastness of the universe stretching across billions of light years. Now return to your body, carrying this expanded perspective. This practice isn't about dismissing your problems as unimportant. It's about gaining accurate perspective. From the cosmic viewpoint, most of our daily stresses are revealed for what they truly are, temporary and manageable. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: how quickly all things disappear, in the universe the bodies themselves, but in time, the remembrance of them. I practice this whenever I receive a critical comment or face rejection. Recently, after spending weeks on a proposal that was ultimately rejected, I felt the sting of failure acutely. The rejection dominated my thoughts, and I found myself replaying the situation repeatedly. I took 5 minutes to practice the view from above. From 10,000 feet up, I could see that this rejection was one tiny event in a long career. From the perspective of the planet, it was invisible. From the perspective of cosmic time, it didn't register at all. This didn't eliminate my disappointment, but it right-sized it. I was able to learn from the experience without being defined by it. The mental weight lifted, and I could move forward with clarity rather than emotional baggage. Modern psychological research supports this Stoic practice. Studies on self-distancing show that viewing problems from a third-person perspective, or greater distance, reduces emotional reactivity and improves problem-solving. Research by psychologist Ethan Kross found that people who viewed negative experiences from a distanced perspective showed lower blood pressure and heart rate during stress, decreased rumination afterward, more constructive analysis of the situation, better emotional regulation. Here's how to incorporate this practice into your daily life. Morning perspective. Start your day with a brief zooming out exercise to set proper perspective to trigger events. Use the view from above whenever you feel overwhelmed, angry, or hurt. Decision-making. Before important decisions, consider how they look from multiple perspectives. For evening reflection. Review your day from an elevated perspective to identify what truly mattered. Try setting a reminder on your phone to zoom out at least once daily for 2 weeks, and notice how your perspective on problems begins to shift. Memento mori. Remember death. We've been conditioned by modern society to avoid thinking about death. We use euphemisms, hide the dying in hospitals, and generally treat mortality as a taboo subject. The Stoics did the opposite. They made remembering death, memento mori, a daily practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Seneca advised, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing." And Epictetus bluntly stated, "Keep death and exile before your eyes each day, along with everything that seems terrible. By doing so, you'll never have a base thought, nor will you have excessive desire." This isn't morbid. It's clarifying. When you remember that your time is finite, you gain an incredible filter for what matters and what doesn't. Death awareness serves several powerful functions. Priority clarification. It immediately reveals what truly matters to you. Procrastination elimination. It creates urgency for meaningful action. Appreciation enhancement. It increases gratitude for the time you have. Fear reduction. Regular contemplation of death reduces the terror of mortality. Ego dissolution. It puts personal concerns in proper perspective. The Stoics understood what modern research has confirmed. Conscious awareness of mortality doesn't make life more depressing. It makes it more meaningful. Here's how I've incorporated this Stoic practice into my life. Every morning, I spend 60 seconds contemplating that this day could be my last. This isn't abstract. I visualize specific aspects of mortality. The last time I would see loved ones, projects left unfinished, words left unsaid, the ultimate return of my body to the earth. Then I ask myself 3 questions. If this were my last day, would I spend it as I've planned? What would I regret not having said to someone I love? What trivial matters would I immediately drop? This practice doesn't make me fearful. It makes me focused. It burns away procrastination and petty conflicts like morning fog under the sun. It ensures that I don't postpone the important conversations, the meaningful work, the authentic connections that give life its depth. Research increasingly validates this ancient practice. Studies on mortality salience show that healthy contemplation of death, not anxious rumination, increases prioritization of meaningful goals over trivial concerns, gratitude for everyday experiences, willingness to take positive risks, generosity toward others, reduced attachment to material possessions. 2017 study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that participants who engaged in death reflection reported higher levels of meaning and gratitude compared to control groups. Steve Jobs, who studied Stoic ideas, expressed this perfectly in his famous Stanford commencement address. "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose." This Stoic mindset helped him take the risks that changed technology forever. When asked about facing public criticism, Jobs said, "I'm already naked, and I've got nothing to lose." Beyond the morning practice, there are several ways to incorporate memento mori into your life. Keep a symbolic reminder visible. The Stoics often used small sculptures. Set calendar reminders at random intervals, asking, "If this were your last year, what would you change?" Write a personal obituary. How would you want to be remembered? Visit a cemetery occasionally for reflection. At the end of each day, consider, "If this were my last day, would I be satisfied with how I lived it?" The key is making death awareness a tool for better living, not an anxiety trigger. Negative visualization. While similar to premeditation of evils, this practice, called premeditatio malorum by the Stoics, focuses specifically on appreciating what you already have by imagining its loss. Epictetus advised, "When you are delighted with anything, be delighted as with a thing which is not one of those which cannot be taken away, but as something of such a kind as an earthen pot or a glass cup, so that when it has been broken you may remember what it was and may not be troubled." In the same way, if you kiss your child or your wife, say that you only kiss things which are human, and thus you will not be disturbed if either of them dies. This sounds harsh to modern ears, but the Stoics weren't suggesting you love less. Quite the opposite. They were advising you to love more deeply by remaining conscious of impermanence. This practice works through what psychologists now call hedonic adaptation, our tendency to quickly take for granted what we have. We rapidly adjust to improvements in our lives, returning to baseline satisfaction. By mentally subtracting blessings, We reverse this adaptation and renew appreciation. Negative visualization differs from premeditation of evils in its focus. Premeditation of evils focuses on external events and developing resilience. Negative visualization focuses on your current blessings and developing gratitude. Take a moment to think about 3 people you love most in the world. Visualize their faces. Recall specific moments of connection with each of them. Now, gently, imagine a life where they were never part of your story, not tragically lost, but simply never present in your life. How would your experiences be different? What lessons would you have missed? What joys would have gone unexperienced? Now, return to reality where they are present and notice how your appreciation deepens. The Stoics applied this to everything: health, wealth, relationships, even simple comforts like warm shelter and clean water. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' I practice this with my ability to create content. I take a few minutes to imagine losing my voice, my mental clarity, or my platform to share ideas. I visualize in detail, struggling to form coherent thoughts, being unable to articulate concepts I understand, having no outlet to share insights that might help others, losing the connection with this community we've built. When I then return to the reality where I can speak freely and connect with you all, my gratitude overwhelms any complaints about the challenges of content creation. Suddenly, writer's block or technical difficulties seem like minor inconveniences rather than major problems. Research has confirmed the power of this technique. Studies show that people who practice negative visualization report significantly higher levels of gratitude and life satisfaction. 2008 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that participants who wrote about how their romantic relationships might never have happened showed greater satisfaction and commitment compared to control groups. Similarly, research on the subtraction exercise, imagining life without various blessings, shows significant increases in well-being and decreased hedonic adaptation. Here's how to incorporate this practice. Daily blessing subtraction. Each morning, choose one thing you value and imagine life without it too. Relationship appreciation. Monthly, visualize never having met important people in your life. 3. Health consciousness. During physical activity, imagine being unable to move freely. Comfort. Awareness during moments of basic comfort, warm shower, comfortable bed. Imagine these being unavailable. The key is to practice this regularly but briefly. 2-3 minutes is sufficient, and to end by returning to present reality with renewed appreciation. Voluntary discomfort. The Stoics didn't just think about difficulty, they deliberately sought it out through voluntary discomfort. This practice involves intentionally placing yourself in challenging situations to build mental resilience. Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest men, regularly practiced poverty, eating plain food, wearing simple clothes, and sleeping on a hard mat. Even though he could afford luxury, he wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Musonius Rufus, another Stoic philosopher, taught, "We will train both soul and body when we accustom ourselves to cold, heat, thirst, hunger, scarcity of food, hardness of bed, abstaining from pleasures, and enduring pains." Why would the Stoics deliberately seek discomfort? Because they recognized several profound benefits. Resilience building. By voluntarily experiencing discomfort, you build tolerance for involuntary hardships. Fear reduction. Many fears lose their power once you've willingly faced them. Appreciation enhancement. Temporary abstinence increases enjoyment when you return to comforts. Self-reliance development. Discovering you need less than you thought creates freedom. Impulse control strengthening. Voluntary discomfort builds the muscle of self-discipline. Most importantly, voluntary discomfort trains your mind to be independent of external circumstances for its well-being. In our comfort-obsessed culture, voluntary discomfort is revolutionary. Here are modern practices I've personally tested. Cold exposure, ending showers with 30 to 60 seconds of cold water. Winter swimming or cold plunges, wearing lighter clothing in cool but safe temperatures. Fasting, starting with 16-hour intermittent fasts, gradually building to 24 to 36-hour fasts with medical approval, consuming only water and electrolytes during fasting periods. Intentional simplicity. Weeks of eating only simple foods. rice, beans, vegetables, technology fasts, 24 hours without screens, sleeping on the floor occasionally, wearing the same simple clothes for a period. 4. Difficult exercise, pushing beyond what feels comfortable, safely, embracing the suck during intense physical effort, outdoor exercise in suboptimal weather conditions, social discomfort, public speaking opportunities, cold outreach to strangers for networking, having difficult but necessary conversations. After 6 months of practicing cold exposure, I noticed something remarkable. Not only could I handle physical discomfort better, but my emotional resilience improved dramatically. When faced with a public speaking opportunity that would have previously terrified me, I found myself thinking, if I can willingly stand under ice-cold water for 2 minutes, I can certainly handle a few minutes of social discomfort. The research supports this cross-domain resilience. Studies show that physical resilience training transfers to emotional and mental resilience. Modern research is validating what the Stoics knew intuitively. Cold exposure has been shown to increase norepinephrine levels by 200–300%, which helps with focus and mood regulation. Intermittent fasting improves metabolic health and cognitive function. Voluntary hardship increases psychological flexibility and frustration tolerance. Physical challenges build mental toughness that transfers to non-physical domains. A 2017 study in the European Journal of Psychology found that regular exposure to self-selected adversity correlates with higher levels of psychological well-being and lower stress reactivity. If you're new to voluntary discomfort, start small. Take a 30-second cold shower at the end of your normal shower. Try a 12–16-hour fast, essentially skipping breakfast. Take a walk without your phone. Sleep without a pillow for 1 night. Engage in a challenging conversation you've been avoiding, then gradually increase intensity as your comfort with discomfort grows. The key is to choose discomforts that are challenging but not harmful. Remember, the goal isn't suffering for suffering's sake. It's freedom. Freedom from the tyranny of comfort that weakens the mind. Freedom from the fear of discomfort that limits your life choices. Freedom to thrive regardless of external circumstances. As Seneca said, it is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the one who hankers after more. Voluntary discomfort reveals how little you truly need to be well. The mental reverse clause. Our final Stoic mind training technique is what I call the mental reverse clause, a practice the ancient Stoics used to eliminate disappointment and frustration before they could take root. Epictetus advised, when you are going about any action, remind yourself what nature the action is. If you are going to bathe, picture to yourself the things which usually happen in the bath. Some people splash the water, some push, some use abusive language, and others steal. Thus you will more safely go about this action if you say to yourself, I will now go bathe and keep my own mind in a state conformable to nature. And in the same manner with regard to every other action. This practice involves adding a mental reverse clause to your expectations, a reminder that things may not go as planned, and that's okay. It's the opposite of positive visualization. Instead of imagining perfect outcomes, you remind yourself of potential obstacles and accept them in advance. The technique works through several psychological mechanisms. Expectation management. It aligns your expectations with reality. Emotional preparation. It prevents the shock of unexpected frustrations. Plan flexibility. It primes your mind to adapt rather than rigidly cling to original plans. Agency enhancement. It reminds you that your response is what matters, not the external event. Here's how this works in practice. Instead of thinking, I'm going to have a productive workday, add the reverse clause. I'm going to attempt a productive workday, though interruptions may occur. Instead of, this will be a perfect vacation, add, I'll enjoy this vacation while accepting that some things won't go as planned. Instead of, this new relationship will make me happy, add, I'll enjoy this relationship while recognizing it will include challenges. The key difference from negative visualization is that you're not just imagining the negative, you're accepting it as a natural, expected part of life while still moving forward. When I launched my first major project, I was tempted to visualize perfect success, thousands of sign-ups, glowing testimonials, and flawless execution. But I remembered this Stoic practice and added the reverse clause. I'm launching this project, which I've prepared for thoroughly. It may succeed as I hope, or it may fail entirely. There will likely be technical problems, criticism, and unexpected obstacles. All of these are normal parts of creating something new, and none will determine my worth or future potential. When the launch day arrived and the website crashed immediately, I wasn't emotionally devastated. I'd already accepted this possibility and had both technical contingency plans and the mental resilience to handle it calmly. The result? We resolved the issues within hours rather than panicking, and the project ultimately succeeded, though not in the exact way I'd initially envisioned. Research on defensive pessimism and preparatory regret. supports this Stoic technique. Studies show that people who mentally prepare for potential obstacles experience less disappointment when challenges arise, demonstrate greater problem-solving effectiveness, report higher satisfaction with outcomes, regardless of success or failure, show more perseverance through difficulties. A 2009 study in the Journal of Experimental Social Psychology found that considering potential obstacles led to better preparation and greater goal achievement compared to purely positive visualization. Here's how to incorporate this practice. Before any significant undertaking, explicitly state your intention. Add, though X may happen, acknowledging potential obstacles. Include, and if so, I'll respond. By affirming your agency, remind yourself that the obstacle is not separate from the path. It is the path. Try this before your next important meeting or presentation, social gathering, creative project, travel plans, difficult conversation. Now that we've explored these 7 powerful Stoic mind training techniques, let's address how to integrate them into a cohesive daily practice. The ancient Stoics didn't practice these techniques in isolation. They wove them together into a comprehensive system of mental training that transformed their relationship with reality. Here's a simple daily Stoic mind training routine that integrates all 7 practices in less than 30 minutes. Morning practice, 15 minutes. Dichotomy of control meditation, 3 minutes. Identify your key tasks and challenges for the day. Clearly separate what you can and cannot control in each situation. Set a clear intention to focus only on what you can control. Memento mori reflection, 2 minutes. Briefly contemplate your mortality. Ask, if this were my last day, how would I approach it? Use this perspective to prioritize your day. Negative visualization, 3 minutes. Select one blessing in your life, person, capability, resource. Vividly imagine life without it. Return to reality with renewed appreciation. From above, 3 minutes. Mentally zoom out to see your day in larger context. See your place in your community, in humanity, in cosmic scale. Carry this perspective into your day. Mental reverse clause, 4 minutes. Review your plans for the day. Add, though X may happen, to each expectation. Prepare your mind to respond constructively to obstacles. Evening practice, 10 minutes. Premeditation review, 5 minutes. Identify one fear or concern currently affecting you. Practice premeditation of evils, facing it directly. Develop specific contingency plans. Dichotomy journal, 5 minutes. Review 3 situations from today that caused emotional disturbance. Separate what was and wasn't in your control. Rate your focus on what you could control, 110. Set intention for improvement tomorrow. Weekly practice, once per week. Voluntary discomfort, variable time. Select one comfort to temporarily forego. Food, technology, convenience. Notice your reactions and attachments. Reflect on what this reveals about your dependencies. Modern psychology recognizes that consistency is critical for neural rewiring. When practiced daily, these techniques don't just change your thoughts, they literally rewire your brain. Research on neuroplasticity shows that regular meditation produces measurable changes in brain structure in as little as 8 weeks. Consistent gratitude practices increase activity in the medial prefrontal cortex. Repeated exposure to mild stressors builds stress resilience at the neurological level. Mental rehearsal activates the same neural pathways as physical performance. By practicing these Stoic techniques daily, you're not just adopting a philosophy, you're rebuilding your neural architecture to become more resilient, clear thinking, and emotionally stable. Some common objections to Stoic practices deserve addressing. Isn't constantly contemplating death morbid? The Stoic practice isn't obsessive rumination on death, but brief, purposeful contemplation that enhances life. Studies show that healthy death awareness increases meaning and appreciation. Doesn't negative visualization make you pessimistic? Research reveals the opposite. Temporary negative visualization followed by return to reality increases optimism and gratitude compared to control groups. Isn't voluntary discomfort masochistic? The purpose isn't suffering for suffering's sake, but building resilience and appreciation through temporary controlled challenges. Something modern psychology validates through concepts like hormesis and anti-fragility. 5 years of practicing these Stoic mind training techniques have transformed my life from one of anxiety to purposeful calm. I still face the same challenges as before: deadlines, criticisms, uncertainties, losses. But my response to them is fundamentally different. Where I once spent hours in emotional turmoil over circumstances beyond my control, I now redirect that energy to constructive action within my sphere of influence. Where I once avoided thinking about difficulties, I now face them directly, reducing their power over me. This isn't theoretical for me. When my father was diagnosed with a serious illness last year, these practices didn't eliminate my pain. Nothing could, but they allowed me to be fully present with him without being consumed by fear and anxiety. I could focus on what mattered, our time together, rather than wasting precious days in worry about what I couldn't control. I invite you to commit to just 30 days of Stoic mind training. Not as a philosophy to admire, but as a practice to embody. The Stoics understood that knowledge without action is empty. As Epictetus said, if you want to be a good reader, read. If you want to be a good writer, write. But you will go 30 days without speaking to anyone and take a little wine with water. But drink water for now. Don't wish to appear beautiful when there's no one to appear beautiful to. If you want to be a wrestler, take your arm and shoulder and thigh and exercise them. In other words, if you want mental resilience, train your mind. Start with just 5 minutes each morning using the practices I've shared. After 30 days, evaluate the changes in your mental responses to challenges. I believe you'll be amazed at the difference. The ancient Stoics faced plagues, exile, torture, and death with a clarity and courage that amazes us even today. Not because they were superhuman, but because they systematically trained the one tool we all possess, the mind. In our age of unprecedented external comfort and widespread mental suffering, we need this ancient wisdom more than ever. The Stoics offer not just philosophy, but a proven mental training system that has stood the test of time across civilizations and centuries. The choice is yours. Will your mind remain untrained, reacting chaotically to whatever happens? Or will you train it to become your greatest ally, a fortress of calm and clarity regardless of external circumstances? As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The training begins now. Your mind is waiting. If you found value in these Stoic mind training techniques, please hit the like button and share this video with someone who might benefit from greater mental resilience. In the comments below, let me know which of these 7 techniques you'll commit to practicing first, and any questions you have about implementation. If you want to go deeper with Stoic practice, check out the recommended reading list in the description below, and consider subscribing for weekly videos on practical philosophy for modern life. Until next time, remember the words of Epictetus: make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens.